In this session, we will make a brief introduction to sociotechnical computer addicts. We will see what sociotechnical view is. Throughout this session and throughout all sessions from now, these words can be used instead of each other. Ethics corresponds to morality, and morality corresponds to ethics, vice versa. And when we say computer, we mean information and communication technology as whole. Like when we say computer, it has a broad meaning. This is a very common saying, like guns don't kill people, people kill people. We will discuss and see whether this holds or not. We will first introduce the traditionalist account. The traditionalist account claims that the new or all the ethical case analysis relies on our previous traditional ethical analysis as well, just the new versions of it. You see, we need to answer this question: does IT create new ethical issues that never existed before, or is it just new versions of old ethical issues? For example, suppose that someone has stolen from your bank account or something. Is this a new version of theft that has been done in, for example, in the Middle Ages? Is it just a new version of theft, or is it something new, something never existed before? That's an important question. In fact, technology results in complex ethical issues: nuclear weapons, genetically modified organisms, cloning, genetic diseases research, mind-altering technology. It is still the science of subjective experience, etc. Now, if we say that technology creates complex ethical issues that never existed before, this will lead us to another account, standard account, which is different from the traditionalist view. Okay, we will discuss it in a few moments. And the other thing is, particularly IT creates new ethical issues more than the invention of automobiles, electricity, and bridges. Especially the new technologies that has been introduced with IT creates more issues, so more to discuss at the end of this course. And now it's just a preliminary start, and this argument will lead to sociotechnical systems approach that we will discuss in a few moments. Okay, so here we mentioned about three different views on the topic. Okay, the traditionalist account, the standard account, and the sociotechnical systems approach, which is also called STS. Now, the standard account is the argument against the traditionalist account in particularly James Moore's 1985 paper about what is computer ethics. He argues that computers create new possibilities and opportunities. Okay, there are lots of examples here again, like community groups, global companies. It's closing geographical gaps as well. Now, these are just something new opportunities that has been existed before, but some not possible before. Like you cannot comprehend them before, like data mining, proprietary software, child abuse on the web. And even more like platforms like Second Life, robot caring for the elderly, especially this is done in Japan, and artificial robomedics, intelligent warfare. They're not easy to comprehend. These ones are easier to comprehend. Okay, if you say this to a person living in, for example, 1910, for example, okay, like 100 years later, there will be a technology that you will be able to communicate with people at the other side of the world. Are you crazy? He will say, but that would be comprehensible, like it would be possible. But if you tell the same person who lives in 1910, and there will be data mining in future, there will be internet in the future, you cannot even explain what it is to that person. Okay, so like this is what is meant by no possibility before or incomprehensible before. So that's the idea. However, with the new things, new possibilities, good and bad come together. For example, virtual reality, it's something great. It results in modeling, simulation, training. It's great. However, it also creates platforms for people who escape real world. Okay, people can get addicted to such environments. It is a drawback. These are something nice, but this is a drawback. And for example, robo-caring for the elderly, robot nurses. Okay, it results in better care for our patients, for our elderly, but it results in less human contact. This is the drawback. Okay, every issue comes with good and bad sides together. We shouldn't forget about this, or we shouldn't neglect this. Here in these situations, economic view is like the politic view, etc. It's really important. We don't argue about this. But this is called descriptive approach. Here we discuss, or we try to understand, how do people behave. This is important. However, this is about the facts or the reality, what is happening. We need to find food to survive, or like we need to earn money to survive, or something. These are daily facts. However, we shouldn't forget that ethical perspective is also very important. Even, okay, this is important, this is very important, because it is called the normative approach to the problem, not only discussing current facts, it is explaining us how should people behave in particular situations. It's bringing a universal approach to analysis or cases or problems. That's the idea. Ethical perspective is very important. We should keep this in mind. So, James Moore argues that new possibilities create a vacuum of policies. We normally have policies with dealing particular situations, but if new possibilities are introduced, they may result in a vacuum in those policies, and those vacuums should be filled. And computer ethics comes into stage at that moment for filling those policy vacuums that has been created by the new possibilities. For example, when the computer files were first, introduced, there was no privacy concern because there was no remote access at all. If someone can access your files, he needs to access to your physical computer, like he needs to enter your room and type in your computer or something. But when remote access was available, now it creates a policy vacuum, okay? Now those files become an issue for a privacy concern. That's the idea. And in such cases, filling those policy vacuums are sorting out conceptual models. So we need to agree on the definitions of those stuff. So what is a file? For example, when you're talking about digital copyrights and patent laws, we need to agree, or we need to have a consensus on the definition of a computer program, for example. What is a computer program? Do we mean the executable code which has been stored in the hard drive, or like the read-only memory or something? Or do we mean the algorithm, okay? What is your definition on it? So in order to fill the policy vacuums, you need to sort out the conceptual models first. You need to agree on the definitions. So this is the standard account, and if we need an update to the standard account, here comes the discussion. The change in information technology results in science and technological studies. For example, transplantation results in donation of people donate organs, but some of them are seldom. For example, urine tests at work. Who doesn't want better health care? If you have a, for example, disease, it will be uncovered immediately. Don't you want that? But it is also an offense on your privacy, maybe, and your sexual preference, race, or religion. These are some private issues. And genetically modified food, okay, the benefits and risks. So policy vacuums resulting in conceptual models sets a requirement for new technology ethics. Okay, this is called the standard accounts point of view. However, this newness can be it can be discussed, or it is open for discussion here, this new technology ethics. Now, they can be, the first argument against it is, they can be new first, like a policy vacuum can be introduced, and they can be filled or may not be filled properly. And even if they're filled, it can result in bad policies or good policies. This is ideal condition, but can result in bad policies. I mean, we shouldn't only discuss that it is happening at the first introduction, first news moment here. Okay? We shouldn't forget that IT is shaping moral practices as well. That's the idea about it. And the technologies that has been introduced in our lives, especially with IT, aren't just new anymore. Okay, there are lots of inventions in IT, but we shouldn't forget that we live in a e-world. Like I call this integration. This is my call, okay, my saying. Like we have integrated ourselves with the electronic world now, so we cannot simply say that something new has been introduced. It's just it makes it quite simple for definition, particularly for IT issues. And another argument against the standard account is we're focusing on the newness as an impact introduction. Like we assume that the new inventions can come out of nowhere, like they fall on our heads from the sky or something. It misses that there's a social context in it too. Technology is affected by human motivating forces as well. For example, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak founded Apple. They worked for HP before, and they were located in California at that time, and they were working in garage which has electricity. They were Steve Wozniak was an electronic engineer, for example. He has some particular education. They worked on the mouse, on-screen icons, and more than that, their first device has been bought by a hobby store. Like they sold some devices to that hobby store, and they somehow created a funding. So we cannot say that it is coming out of nowhere. It's the same for Facebook as well. They're not coming out of nowhere. I mean, there's a social context in their inventions too. That's another argument. And be very careful about this. This is another powerful argument as well. If something is new, it doesn't mean that it is the only possible or best possible solution. Be careful. Helen Nissenbaum is one example for this. He invented TrackMeNot, which is an add-on for Firefox and Chrome browsers, which obfuscates your search queries. It is called the value-sensitive design. So don't get blinded, please. a new invention doesn't mean that it is the only solution. Okay, it is the best possible solution. We should be very careful about the newness and the relationship between the real newness and only possible solution. There can be alternatives. There can be value-sensitive design, which is becoming quite popular today, and it could be even more popular in 10 years or 20 years, for example. Don't forget about this. Value-sensitive design, it is called. So we can argue that the standard account is not especially, let's say, an argument for computers or IT particularly. It is rather on new technology in general, anything new technology. But we argue that, or the author of this book argues that the computers or IT create more specific cases for thinking. So this introduced the notion of the socio-technical systems perspective here. This results in science and technology studies, socio-technical systems perspective, and if we have this perspective, we should avoid 3 mistakes while thinking about technology. The socio-technical systems perspective has some properties. The first one is, like we have 3 of them, reject technological determinism. Think or shaping, they both affect each other. Okay, what is this? Let's take a look at it. There are 2 tenets of 2 support areas of technological determinism. We should reject them. The first one argues that technological development is independent from society. We have a counter argument for this. Decisions of government agencies, for example, result in different types of technological inventions, or social incidents can affect technological developments, or war, terrorist attacks, some effect on security inventions, or National Science Foundation, or in Turkey TÜBİTAK's grants result in some particular technologies being favored. For example, if nanotechnology projects are supported more, you will get more inventions in nanotechnology, for example. This is the first tenet that we reject. And the second one is technology determines the character of society. No, that's not directly true as well. For example, automobile safety and fuel efficiency affects the automobile design. Okay, society also affects this. And we can say that both A and B can be referred to third required update of this, like this one. For example, we're talking about this one, okay? So we're underlining this here. This is my call or my idea here. So we shouldn't forget about this co-shaping scheme here. Like technology affects society, and society also affects technology. We shouldn't forget about this co-shaping scheme. And this is also important that we need to discuss, not only society but also nature as well. Don't forget about this claim. Nature cannot be made to do just anything humans want it to do, so we cannot force it. However, nevertheless, nature does not entirely determine the technologies we get. So that's the idea, or that's the trade-off with the nature as well. It's a similar kind of relationship between technology and nature, and technology and society and nature as well. And the second one is reject technology as material objects. Think sociotechnical systems. What do we mean by this? artifacts are result of intentional human activity. Look at this invention. It is an intentional human activity. It serves some purpose. So we can say that technology is a social product, okay? It has a purpose. Everything has a purpose, in fact. An artifact is only a part of a social system, and it doesn't do anything itself without those meaning in that social system. Think about an employee monitoring system at work, for example. It records hours and hours of data or gigabytes of data, but it doesn't have any meaning without the manager monitoring or just analyzing that data or something, okay? It is meaningful if you place it in the big picture. That's the idea. And Hughes argues that in 1994 study, sociotechnical systems can be defined as not only social and not only technical. It quite differs from traditional addicts here, which is true. And we cannot understand the technology just by focusing on the artifact. For example, if we only focus on this, we cannot understand that technology. For example, a monitoring tool, a data mining tool, or a word processor. It doesn't matter. This relates to the updates on the third and fourth issues of the standard account. It is related to this one and this counter argument. This is my call, my idea, I guess. Okay, we can say that. Now, this is a good example for explaining this. For example, what you see here is a rook. Okay, like I can tell you for 5 minutes about how this rook piece moves, right? It moves horizontally, it moves vertically, it moves horizontally on line, and if I can tell this to you for 15 minutes, okay, or 10 minutes, but you will understand this in the end. But unless you don't know what chess game is, this will not have any meaning at all, okay? It is useless, you understand this? If you know the chess game as a whole, now how rook moves and what rook is has a meaning. That's the idea with rejecting technology as material objects, but try to understand where does this artifact fits in the big picture. This is what you need to understand. This is what you need to clarify, okay? And the last one is reject technology as neutral. Think that technology are infused with values. They serve a purpose. So we cannot say that this is value neutral, okay? Like the guns don't kill people, people kill people. In fact, the guns are invented for a particular purpose. They are not value neutral. They are designed for killing people. That's the idea. Langdon Winner, in his 1986 study, he discusses, do artifacts have politics at all? And he argues that particle technologies cannot exist or function without particular kinds of social arrangements. So, adoption of a technology means adoption of a social order as well. For example, a society can decide between using nuclear power or windmills. So this is the adoption of a particular technology results in an adoption of a social order as well. Or they can rely on trains or bicycles for transportation. Again, it results in a social order. And a society can focus on social approach or individualism. So again, it results in a social order. There is an interesting case analysis about the particular. The technology is infused with values instead of being value neutral. In New York, Robert Moses built the bridges of Long Island in 1930s. That the bridges he built was so low that the public transportation buses could not pass under the height of those bridges. Okay, that's the idea. And those roads were limiting access of poor people's access to the beach located, the beaches located in New York, and resulting in discrimination. For example, poor people will have limited access to beaches, and rich people who doesn't use public transportation, who own their own private cars, will be going there comfortably, for example. This has been discussed, or this has been he's blamed that he did this on purpose. He built those bridges high, particularly to prevent those public transportation buses from passing there. But okay, do you think that it is a race-biased arrangement? The poor people or black people that time will have limited access to beaches that time? You can read more about this in Wikipedia if you like, or internet if you like, but it misses a crucial point. If we say this, it could result in technical determinism as well. It is a combination of many complex or many different aspects of the case. It is if we focus only on the height of bridges, we can maybe fall in technical determinism as well. It is also based on the size of buses. It is also based on the previous social arrangements, and it is also based on the ideas about race and social hierarchy that time. Everything affects each other. It's a very grift and complex case for analysis. We should be careful about analyzing, or it's not an easy case to analyze directly. You can read more about it in Wikipedia if you like. And for example, let's take a socio-technical system example here. For example, Facebook. It's a socio-technical system. It's just not only a social media platform. Okay, it's invented by Mark Zuckerberg, and he didn't come out of nowhere. He was a student at Harvard, and it was an application for Harvard graduates that time. It was a requirement, or it was an interesting thing that had been used. It's a social networking site. It is based on users' contribution and users' enforcement as well. If users want something to happen, they can enforce it. And we can say that it is not value neutral. It's something not neutral, and user values and Facebook values usually clash, and there are some trade-offs. We shouldn't forget that it is a profit organization, and there is a really recent event which is called the Facebook scandal about the elections, about vote manipulations, or advertisements, which is a case about the Cambridge Analytica as well. You can read about it on the internet or Wikipedia. We can say that it's a socio-technical system. It's not a value neutral platform. We can say that. And let's take a look at the difference between micro and macro level analysis of cases. Suppose that we're thinking about placing an RFID tag on our elder, for example, our grandmother or grandparent, for better care that can be implemented on an older person. It is an individual case that can be analyzed. So it is called micro-level analysis. But what about, so these are usually related with individuals, particular groups, or small group of people. On macro level analysis, we consider about large groups, organizations, and countries. For example, hospital policies, or for example, should hospital use RFID tags? Should hospitals use robot nurses, for example? Should software be proprietary? Should employers monitor employee emails? Is this a fair arrangement? You should analyze this case. It is called macro-level analysis. And those two analysis approaches interact with each other because both levels affect each other. For example, hacking is an individual action, in fact, micro level. Okay, is it a wrong action or right action? You can discuss about it and you can analyze it as an individual action. It is called the macro level analysis. But how to deal with hackers or how to deal with such cases requires an interaction with laws, and it is called macro level analysis. And let's look at an interaction between them, micro and macro levels. The hacker was wrong to gain unauthorized access because it is illegal. You see? So we analyze this micro level case with macro level analysis. They're interacting each other. That's the idea between micro and macro level analysis. Now, if we return to the broad question, why do we study computer addicts? And why a book on technology and addicts? Because technology is a part of human activity, and it is shaped by morality. It affects our decisions and choices, strongly affects. And why do we need a book specifically on computers or IT addicts? What we have is, for example, Deborah Johnson's name is Computer Addicts, right? Why not only ethics or technology ethics, but computer addicts? Because different technologies have different effects, and not just addicts, but we prefer IT addicts because sociotechnical perspective notes that all social activities are, in a part at least, shaped by technology. So we can say that ethics is a major branch of philosophy that we discussed, and IT ethics a particular important domain within those ethical analysis. We can say that. Okay, here in this session we made a brief introduction to sociotechnical systems perspective. And the text is truly taken from Deborah Johnson's book, and I got several images from Google, and I looked at the articles from Wikipedia as well.